All right, welcome. Today, we are pulling back the curtain and cracking open the engine room of modern digital news. We're going to deconstruct the exact blueprint a really high-impact channel uses to turn these dense, complex current events into compelling, must-watch explainers. So let's get right into it and start taking this machine apart, piece by piece. You know, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You've got this mountain of data, conflicting reports, and an audience that, let's be honest, has the attention span of a goldfish. So how in the world do you take all of that and forge it into a short, sharp, and shareable explainer that actually connects with real people? Well, that's the core challenge we're going to solve today.
So here's the game plan. We'll start with the challenge itself, then we'll walk through building the foundation, crafting that core story, directing the host, and finally, putting the script all together. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the secret sauce. What makes this whole blueprint so ridiculously effective.
Okay, first up, we have to understand the battlefield. In today's media world, the biggest challenge isn't just making content. It's trying to cut through this constant, relentless noise, just to earn a few seconds of someone's attention. Just think about your own social media feeds for a second. It is a total fire hose of information, right? And that's exactly why just presenting a list of facts is a losing game. You need a system, a blueprint that's specifically engineered to pierce through all that static and actually hold that attention. The model we're breaking down today, it was perfected by the news channel Stephen AI FM for this exact purpose. So how do we even start building this thing? Well, it all begins with the foundation. This is the absolutely crucial work you have to do before you write a single word of the script. It's all about nailing three things: your concept, your title, and establishing immediate trust with your viewer. Think of these three pillars as a system that answers the viewer's unspoken questions before they even ask them. The punchy title answers, "Hey, why should I click on this?" The clear sourcing answers, "Okay, why should I trust you?" And that distinct brand voice answers, "Am I in the right place? Is this for me?" If you can nail these three, you have already won half the battle. Now just take a look at this title. It's an absolute masterclass in building that foundation. Shocking election twist. That creates immediate intrigue. What it means for you? That promises personal value. It makes it relevant. And the brand tag, Stephen AI FM, that acts like a seal of quality. See, it's not just a title, it's a perfectly engineered gateway into the rest of the explainer.
All right, with a solid foundation in place, now we can get to the heart of it all. Turning dry, boring information into a compelling story. This is that moment where you stop just listing facts and you start weaving a narrative that pulls the viewer in from the very first second.
This simple three-act structure is the engine of the entire explainer. The hook uses what's called the primacy effect. Our brains are just wired to remember the very first thing we hear. The knowledge pillar, that's where you deliver the core value. And the narrative pivot, that's the payoff, where you reframe all the information in a way that gives the viewer a brand new, powerful perspective.
Now that is a hook. It's instantly relatable, it's a little provocative, and it immediately establishes what's at stake. It doesn't just present a problem, it poses this deeply personal dilemma that just makes you lean in and demand to know more. It literally hooks your brain by creating a question that it needs to find the answer to.
So, you've got your story structure. But the way that story is told is just as crucial, if not more so. This next section is all about directing the delivery, making sure the host, whether it's a real person or an AI, is engaging, credible, and stays laser-focused on the narrative.
The blueprint calls this the firewall, and it's basically a set of non-negotiable rules for quality control. You have to block all the things that kill an explainer, like jargon, rambling, personal opinions, and you only let through what works, sticking to the facts, asking engaging questions, and always pointing back to your core message.
And that brings us to the North Star. This is the single overarching theme that connects all the dots in your explainer. So if your North Star is about Irish resilience, then every single data point, whether it's about a tough housing market or an economic boom, it has to ultimately serve to reinforce that central idea for the viewer. It's the thematic glue that holds the entire thing together. Okay, we've got our foundation, we've got our narrative arc, and we have our editorial rules. Now it's time for the final assembly, weaving all of these individual pieces into one seamless, powerful script.
According to this blueprint, the script has to start strong and clear. The very first sentence states the channel name, like "Welcome to Stephen AI FM." And this isn't just about branding, it's an auditory cue that tells the viewer they're in a trusted space. It's followed immediately by a quick summary,
which sets expectations and promises value right from the get-go.
Next up, the deep dive. This is where you tackle each piece of your research, but one at a time. The key here is to find the soul of each source, that one shocking statistic, the single most powerful quote, and the real-world stakes for the people involved. You're building understanding brick by brick, making sure everything is clear before you start building complexity.
And now, for what is probably the most critical step, the synthesis. This is where your explainer elevates from being just a simple report into a piece of true analysis. You stop just telling individual stories, and you start showing how they're all interconnected, how an economic trend in one report is directly fueling a cultural shift that was mentioned in another.
This statement, right here, this is the moment of synthesis. It's this explicit pivot where the host says, okay, we've looked at these two separate puzzle pieces, now let's click them together and see the bigger picture. This is what creates that deeply satisfying aha moment for the audience. And finally, you end with purpose. A strategic call to action isn't just about begging for likes and subscribes, it's about building a community. By asking a genuine question that's related to the topic, you invite the viewer to extend the conversation into the comments, turning passive viewers into an active, engaged community. So we've assembled the whole machine. But now, for the most important question, what's the secret sauce? Why does this blueprint actually work so consistently? Well, the answer lies deep in the psychology of engagement. Look, this blueprint's power comes from a really deep understanding of human psychology. It hooks you with something highly relatable, like that Dublin housing story, to get you emotionally invested. It deliberately paces the story, maybe moving from a serious issue to an uplifting one, to manage the viewer's emotional journey. It builds tension, and it leaves you wanting more. It's a formula that wraps really complex information in a structure our brains are literally wired to follow and enjoy. And that's it. That's the blueprint. We've deconstructed the machine, we've laid out the plans, and we've revealed the secrets to turning complex data into a truly compelling narrative. It's a clear, powerful, and replicable system. So the only question left is the one right there on your screen. What story will you tell?